I don't know whether to call you professor or comrade.
If you are ever looking for a video to show people just how blatantly dishonest Republican lawmakers are, this is the one to do it. As Republican Senator John Kennedy made a complete fool of himself while attempting to hammer Biden's pick for bank regulator by bringing up the fact that she joined or was a part of the Young Communists growing up. Now, to some, that may sound scary. Oh, she was a part of the Young Communists? She grew up in Soviet Kazakhstan, where it was essentially required. So I'll get to more on that later. But the blatant dishonesty here is so obvious, especially as we go on. There's two clips and then a third clip where he's defending himself on Fox News. But quickly, just to break down Saule Omarova's timeline here, or her background. This is the pick, Biden's pick for bank regulator. So she grew up in Soviet Kazakhstan, is now a law professor at Cornell University, is a well-known scholar of financial regulation, and is Biden's pick to head the Office of Comptroller of the Currency, the OCC, which is responsible for regulating the banking industry. Now, let me get to the first clip here where this questioning starts. And again, I'll get to more on this after, but it is so clear that even she's confused as to why she's being asked about this. But man, the dishonesty here is on full display.
You used to be a member of a group called the Young Communists, didn't you?
Senator, are you referring to my membership in the Youth Communist Organization while I was growing up in the Soviet Union?
I don't know. I wanted to ask you that question.
Well, Senator,
There was a group called the Young Communists, and you were a member. Is that right?
I'm not exactly sure which group you're referring to.
Well, the formal name of it is the Leninist Communist Young Union of the Russian Federation, and it's also known as the Leninist Komsomol of the Russian Federation, and it's commonly referred to as the Young Communists. Were you a member?
Senator, I was born and grew up in the Soviet Union.
Yes, ma'am. But were you a member of that organization?
Everybody in that country was a member of the Komsomol, which was the Communist Youth Organization, because
So you were a member?
That was a part of normal progress in school.
Have you resigned
From the youth,
from the Young Communists?
you grow out of it with age, automatically.
Did you send them a letter though, resigning?
Senator, this was many, many years ago. As far as I remember, how the Soviet Union worked was at certain age, you automatically stop being a member of that
Could you look at your records and see if you can find a copy of your...
Senator Kennedy, I don't interrupt. I almost never interrupt these, but...
Well, you always interrupt me, Mr.
No,
President,
actually, I don't.
and
Not nearly as many times as
I
I'd
won't
like to.
pursue
No,
the line of
she
questions.
renounced her Soviet citizenship.
Well, I understand that.
All right, I'm going to get to more here on the Young Communists in a second, and later on I'll get to a second clip and a third clip of him on Fox News. But man, this is so dishonest. Even after Omarova explains that she grew up in Kazakhstan, Soviet Kazakhstan, that's what you had to do growing up there, he still plays dumb and is like, oh, so you joined the Young Communists? Do you have your resignation letter? Resignation letter? It's like, do you have a resignation letter from high school? It's such a stupid line of questioning here, but he understands, and it's going to become even more clear in the second clip and the third clip, that he knows he's being dishonest, but he understands that his voters are dumb. Republican voters are largely not all that well educated, so they don't know about any of this. And look, a lot of people don't know about the Young Communists, that's fine, but this senator clearly does, and he's misleading the public about what this nominee is all about. Now, a little more here on the Young Communists. So this is from the Washington Post. This is an article actually from 1991. So they write here, in the early years after its founding, many joined willingly, hoping to further the aims of the October Revolution and eventually to join the Communist Party. But more recently, the major incentive for joining Komsomol was fear. Those who stayed away often were denied spots at good schools and universities, and thus suffered in their careers. So people joined, sat through tedious political propaganda meetings, helped with the harvest as part of a Komsomol student brigade, and when done with school, dropped out. And to make it even more obvious about how common this was at the time, Komsomol membership reached a maximum of about 40 million children in the 1970s and early 80s. In Soviet society, its members were frequently favored over non-members in matters of employment and scholarships. All right, let's get to the second clip now, where it's going to become even more clear that Kennedy is not simply ignorant, but he is being dishonest.
I don't mean any disrespect. I don't know whether to call you professor or comrade.
Senator, I'm not a communist. I do not subscribe to that ideology. I could not choose where I was born. I do not remember joining any Facebook group that subscribes to that ideology. I would never knowingly join any such group. There is no record of me ever actually participating in any Marxist or communist discussions of any kind. My family suffered under the communist regime. I grew up without knowing half of my family. My grandmother herself escaped death twice under the Stalin regime. This is what's seared in my mind. That's who I am. I remember that history. I came to this country. I'm proud to be an American. And this is why I'm here today, Senator. I'm here today because I'm ready for public service.
After everything her and her family went through, it is incredible that she is able to remain calm while dealing with this line of questioning. I mean, if I was in her position, I would not handle it so well. I'd be freaking the hell out because of just how blatantly dishonest Kennedy is being here. I don't know whether to call you professor or comrade. Come on. He's acting. This entire thing is a show because he understands his base, the Republican base, is not going to look into this. They don't even care about the facts. They just see a Biden pick who was part of the Young Communists. That's enough for them. This is a crazy far left communist pick. I can't believe Biden picked this person. Look, she's a communist. It's all dishonesty, and it shows you just how they use fear to mislead people. And they do this on a consistent basis, and they do it while acting. A lot of it is just acting. These people know better. Kennedy knows better, but he's just acting through this entire thing. Now, a little more on why Republicans historically would like someone like this. So this from MSNBC. While Kennedy and others insinuate that she's the reincarnation of Vladimir Lenin himself, Omarova's life story is one that would have made for ideal anti-Soviet propaganda. Quote, "My grandmother was orphaned because Stalin sent her entire family to Siberia and they died there," she told the Financial Times. Her family was destroyed because they were educated Kazakhs who didn't join the party. Again, normally this is someone that Republicans would like, but doesn't matter because it's a Democratic pick, it's a Biden pick, so it must be terrible. She must be a communist. It's all disgusting. Now, let's get to this Fox News clip, and then I'll also get to after that why Omarova is actually a great pick from a progressive perspective. But first here's Kennedy on Fox News today defending his line of questioning.
You had quite an interaction yesterday on the nominee to be the Comptroller.
Yeah.
How'd that go over?
Well, I just think, I mean, it's clear to me based on our current records that the current record that the president has nominated a neo-socialist. And I asked her a question yesterday, and during my time to ask her a question, given that she went to Moscow State University and studied scientific communism, I asked her if she'd ever been a member of the Communist Party. And it took me a couple of questions, but she finally said, yeah. And then Sherrod Brown, my chairman, Senator Brown, went crack-brained on me and tried to stop me from asking questions. And I politely told him to shut up. And I just think the American people are entitled not to know that the president has nominated somebody to regulate our banks who believes, as she said, in getting rid of banks. And she used to be a member of the Communist Party.
Senator, we'll see if she survives. Thank you for your time today.
Look how dishonest this is. And of course, the Fox News host isn't going to correct him, isn't going to point out the fact that young people growing up in Soviet Union were going to be part of young communists. They had to be. Like, he's not going to bring any of that up. And Kennedy, again, knows. He knows he's full of shit. But he puts out this propaganda. This is a perfect example of how blatant Republican lies are. Now, more on why Omarova is actually a solid pick for this position. So this from First NPR. The OCC has previously come under criticism over perceptions it's too close to the banks it regulates. The Comptroller during the Trump administration, Joseph Otting, reportedly referred to the banks as his customers. In one paper, Omarova suggests the federal government could offer a bank account to every American through the Federal Reserve. Supporters of that proposal say it would reduce the number of unbanked persons significantly. Critics argue it would undermine commercial banks. In another article, she calls for the creation of an agency not unlike the Food and Drug Administration that would be charged with approving or rejecting new financial products. So we'll get to more in a second, but this already shows you this is somebody who stands up for the average person, wants to ensure that banks aren't screwing you over. Yet, of course, the ones that are closest to Wall Street, Republicans, and yes, Democrats are as well, but Republicans are closer to Wall Street. They are the ones here trying to paint her as this crazy communist that shouldn't be put in this position, when in reality, she is somebody who is very well educated in this field and looks out for the average individual. More on that here. The banking lobby, of course, piled on. Rob Nichols of the American Bankers Association asserted that Omarova would effectively nationalize America's community banks, while Brad Bolton, chair of the Independent Community Bankers of America, tweeted, "This nomination must be stopped." Quote, "Of course I expected that Wall Street banks would be strenuously opposing my nomination," Omarova told me, "because my work has been focused on how to minimize systemic risk that is created when large banking institutions start aggressively growing their trading operations and feed speculative booms that may be unsustainable. I expected that they would be worried about me becoming their regulator because they would know that I have strong views about not allowing another crisis to happen. They know I ask difficult questions and keep asking them, rather than being satisfied with superficially reassuring answers from the industry." So here you have somebody that is unafraid to stand up to the big banks. Meanwhile, of course, those representing the big banks are attacking her. Who would you trust in this situation? The ones defending big banks that are screwing you, or Omarova here, who has a history of standing up for the average person, discussing how they are afraid of her? So, yeah, it's just, it's amazing to me the amount of bullshit that will come out of these people's mouths when they are fully aware that they are lying. Kennedy here is a perfect example of how dishonest Republicans are.